they've departed from the Lord, they've gone away from God, and they have gone into great sin. At one time they were close to God, but they've departed, and now they are not. And so, verse 3, he obeys, and he takes Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim, to be his wife. Now the word Gomer means complete, or the end, like as far as you can go. And it indicates that when she got off into her sin, that she went as far into her sin as she could get. She didn't go halfway, she went full on into wickedness. And then her dad's name, Diblaim, means 2 fig cakes. Without looking at your notes, if you didn't cheat already, does anybody know what fig cakes were used in the ancient world? They're the little blue pills of antiquity. I'm talking about the Viagra of antiquity. They were used as an aphrodisiac. And it's interesting that the dad's name means this. Again, it's an indication or a hint on the lifestyle that Gomer would pursue. God's relationship with his people betrothed to Christ. 2 Corinthians 11:2. The marriage supper of the Lamb will happen in heaven, and this is like our engagement period in this analogy, this marriage analogy. And as Christians, we are able to fall into spiritual adultery if we do not stay close to our beloved. That's 2 Corinthians 11:3. And in fact, in the book of James chapter 4, when James says to the church, don't you know that friendship with the world puts you at idolatry, in the same sense as cheating on your spouse? It's a spiritual adultery. And so this marriage picture we have with Hosea and Gomer can be carried on into the New Testament. So as Christians, are we true to our here? So we're going to do our best not to get confused, but it's a little bit like drinking out of a fire hose tonight. First son, verse 4. The Lord said to him, call his name Jezreel. For yet a little while I will avenge the blood of Jezreel upon the house of Jehu, and will cause to cease the kingdom of the house of Israel. It will come to pass in that day, into a movie, it'd be rated R. It's pretty graphic and bloody. But this is Jezreel. Next picture, please. Here's a picture of what it looks like today. Again, it's a long, wide valley, great for battles because you can do chariot maneuvers over antiquity. There's been all kinds of battles there, and Armageddon's going to happen in the future. So this is what's happening in our story. You can go back to the notes, if you would, please. Ahab and Jezebel are some of the wickedest leaders that Israel ever had. And they laid an assault on Israel of murder and mayhem and idolatry and child sacrifice and temple prostitution. You think of it, they did it. In fact, one of the things that Jezebel kicked off was trying to destroy the prophets of God and murder all of them. One of the governors of Ahab's household, older in our story, is Ahab and Jezebel's murder of Naboth. So keep your fingers here. Turn to the left in your Bibles, and we're going to be in 1 Kings 21. We have a few kind of lengthy passages. I want to read them. You can follow along in your Bibles. 1 Kings 21. And it came to pass after these things, we're in verse 1, that Naboth, the Jezreelite. So where's Naboth from? Jezreel. Okay. In fact, we can go back to the picture now if you don't mind, so we can look at that as we read this. He had a vineyard, which was in Jezreel, hard by the palace of Ahab, king of Syria. So their northern fortress, next door, beautiful vineyard. And Ahab really liked it. And Ahab spake unto Naboth, saying, give me thy vineyard, that I may have it for a garden of herbs, because it's near my house, and I will give thee for it a better vineyard than it. Or it seemed good to thee, I will give thee the worth of it in money. And Naboth said to Ahab, the Lord forbidded me that I should give the inheritance of my fathers unto thee. Remember that when the land was divided to the tribes, you were to keep it in the family and not get rid of it. And Naboth said, I can't sell it. God gave it to my family. Got to keep it in the family. To his house heavy and displeased because of the word which Naboth the Jezreelite had spoken to him, for he had said, I will not give thee the inheritance of my fathers. He laid him down upon his bed, turned away his face, and would eat no bread. What do we call that? Yeah, a tantrum. That's right. But Jezebel, his wife, came to him and said to him, Why is thy spirit so sad, that thou eatest no bread? And he said to her, and you can imagine in your inside voice, a whiny voice right now, Because I spake unto Naboth the Jezreelite, and said to him, Give me thy vineyard for money, or else, if it please thee, I will give thee another vineyard for it. And he answered, I will not give thee my vineyard. And Jezebel's wife said to him, Dost thou now govern the kingdom of Israel? Aren't you the king? Arise and eat bread, and let thine heart be merry. I will give thee the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. She said, I'll take care of it, sweetheart. So she wrote letters in Ahab's name, sealed them with his seal, sent the letters unto the elders and the nobles that were in the city, dwelling with Naboth. And she wrote in the letters, saying, Proclaim a fast, and set Naboth on high among the people, and set 2 men, sons of Belial, which means wicked and worthless men, to bear witness against him, saying, Thou didst blaspheme God and the king, and then carry him out, and stone him, that he may die. Just throw rocks at him until he's dead. And the men of his city, even the elders, and the nobles, which were the inhabitants of the city, did as Jezebel had said unto him, and as that was written in the letters which he had sent unto them. They proclaimed a fast, set Naboth on high among the people. And there came in 2 men, children of Belial, sat before him. The men of Belial witnessed against him, even against Naboth, in the presence of the people, saying, Naboth did blaspheme God and the king. They carried him forth out of the city, stoned him with stones, that he died. Then they sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth is stoned and is dead. And it came to pass that Jezebel heard that Naboth was stoned and was dead, that Jezebel said to Ahab, Arise, take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give thee for money, for Naboth is not alive, but he's dead. And it came to pass, when Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, that Ahab rose up to go down to the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite to take possession of it. So, Jezebel and Ahab, wicked people, murder the prophets of God, persecute the prophets of God, hatched a conspiracy to murder Naboth and steal his God-given land. So, as a result of this great wickedness, their demise was prophesied. Look at verse 17. And the word of the Lord came unto Elijah, the Tishbite, saying, Arise, go down to meet Ahab, king of Israel, were dogs. And Ahab said to Elijah, Hast thou found me, O mine enemy? And he answered, I have found thee, because thou hast sold thyself to work evil in the sight of the Lord. I will bring evil upon thee, right? Evil brings calamity. Will take away thy posterity. Will cut off from Ahab him that pisses against the wall, means all the male children, and him that is shut up and left in Israel. And will make thine house like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah, for the provocation which thou provoked me to anger, and made Israel to sin. And of Jezebel also spake the Lord, saying, The dogs shall eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel. So we're still in Jezreel. And him that dieth of Ahab in the city shall the dogs eat, and he that dieth in the field shall the fowls of the air eat. But there is none like unto Ahab, which did sell himself to work wickedness in the sight of the Lord, whom Jezebel his wife stirred up. He did very abominably, and following idols, according to all things, as did the Amorites, whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. Ahab and Jezebel, very wicked, killed the prophets, killed Naboth. Elijah came to him and said, Because of your deeds, there's going to be judgment upon you, and you will suffer these gruesome deaths where dogs will lick your blood and eat what's left of you. Again, it's pretty graphic tonight. Okay? Hang a right and go all the way to 2 Kings now. 2 Kings chapter 9. Now we have Elisha. Elisha is the one who was mentored by Elijah, the next major prophet. And Elisha, in verse 9, chapter 9, pardon me, Elisha the prophet called one of the children of the prophets, said to him, Gird up thy loins, take this box of oil in thine hand, and go to Ramoth Gilead. And when thou comest thither, look where Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nishi, go in, make him rise up from among his brethren, and carry him to an inner chamber. Take the box of oil, pour it on his head, and say, Thus saith the Lord, I have anointed thee king over Israel. Then open the door, and flee, and tarry not. So the young man, even the young man the prophet, went to Ramoth Gilead, and when he came, behold, the captains of the host were sitting, and he said, I have an errand to thee, O captain. And Jehu said, Unto which of all of us? He said, No, to thee, O captain. So he arose, went into the house, poured oil on his head, and said to him, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I have anointed thee king over the people of the Lord, even over Israel. Okay, so Elijah says to one of the small prophets, Go to Jehu, call him aside from dinner, and say, God has appointed you to be the new king over Israel. Look at verse 7. And thou shalt smite the house of Ahab thy master, that I may avenge the blood of my servants, the prophets. So because of Ahab and Jezebel's persecution and murdering the prophets, evil brings calamity, justice will happen, and God says Jehu's going to be the one to bring forth justice to Ahab's family, and the blood of all the servants of the Lord at the hand of Jezebel. For the whole house of Ahab shall perish. I will cut him off from Ahab, by him that pisseth against the wall, him that is shut up and left in Israel. And I will make the house of Ahab like the house of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, like the house of Baasha, the son of Ahijah. And the dogs shall eat Jezebel, the portion of Jezreel. There shall be none to bury her. And he opened the door and fled. And so actually it's kind of a funny story. This young guy, I imagine he's 18 years old, goes in, so can I talk to Captain Jehu? Brings him in, dumps oil on his head, says, you're going to kill all Ahab's family, and then just takes off out the door. And Jehu is left to consider this. Okay, and we see in 2 Kings chapter 10 that God's going to command it. So now, we're going to go slow here. Ahab and Jezebel, very wicked, murdered prophets, murdered Naboth, take over things. Elijah prophesied it. The young prophet commanded Jehu, actions have consequences. It's your job to bring justice on the family of Ahab for his sins. Okay, 2 Kings chapter 9. 2 Kings chapter 9, look at verse 14. So Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, conspired against Joram. Now Joram had kept Ramoth Gilead, he and all Israel, because of Hazael, king of Syria. But King Joram was returned to be healed in Jezreel of his wounds, which the Syrians had given him when he fought with Hazael, king of Syria. And Jehu said, If it be your minds, then let none go forth or escape out of the city. Go and tell it in Jezreel. So Joram was the king of Israel. This is Ahab's gone now. Joram's his son. And Joram is involved in a battle against Damascus. He gets wounded in the battle, so he comes back to the northern fortress of Jezreel to recover from his wounds. Verse 16. Jehu rode in a chariot and went to Jezreel. So Jehu, with his band of bandits, is on the way to Jezreel. But there's another guy at Jezreel as well. Ahaziah, king of Judah, was come down to see Joram. So now, in the northern city of Jezreel, we have the northern king of Israel and the king of Judah hanging out together. And then on the way to meet him is Jehu and his bandits. There's a lot of names. I don't want us to get mixed up, but hopefully we got things figured out. Okay, verse 17. There stood a watchman on the tower of Jezreel. And he spied the company of Jehu. As he came, he said, I see a company. And Joram said, take a horseman, figure out what he wants. Is it peace? Verse 18, he said, is it peace? And Jehu says, what do you got to do with me? Get behind me. So the watchman said, the horseman didn't come back. Verse 19, he sends a second horseman. Is it peace? And Jehu says, not talking to you, get behind me. And the watchman says, he didn't come back. Now verse 20, the watchman says, it looks like the guy leading the charge is Jehu, for he driveth furiously. And in verse 21, Joram said, make ready, for his chariot was made ready. So we have in Jezreel, the northern town, we have Joram, the king of Israel, Azariah, the king of Judah. They're hanging out together, talking about things. Jehu's on his way, and Joram says, this is bad news. We got to get out of here. So he says, make my chariot ready, and he gets in his chariot, and in verse number 21, he's going to take off. He's going to escape the city before Jehu gets there. And Joram, the king of Israel, and Azariah, the king of Judah, they both went out. They were in their chariots, and they went out against Jehu, and they met him in the portion of Naboth the Jezreelite. So before they can escape, they go into the vineyard, and there they have a face-to-face. So on one side we have the king of Israel and the king of Judah together, and on the other side we have Jehu. And they're having a face-off in the vineyard that Naboth owned that Ahab stolen. We're on board so far? Okay. And he then says, verse 22, Joram saw Jehu and said, is it peace, Jehu? What do you want? And he answered, what peace? So as long as the whoredoms of thy mother Jezebel and her witchcrafts are so many. So Joram turned his hands and fled and said to Azariah, there is treachery, O Azariah. Let's get out of here. Turn the chariots, yah, and try to escape with the horses and chariot. And as he's running away, verse 24, Jehu drew a bow with his full strength. And as the king of Israel is escaping, Jehu takes a bow and arrow and sends that arrow right into Joram's back, between his shoulder blades, and the arrow went out at his heart, came out through his chest, and he sat down in his chariot. Then said Jehu to Bidkar's captain, take up and cast him in the portion of the field of Naboth the Jezreelite, so throw him in the field. For remember how that, when I and thou rode together after Ahab his father, the Lord laid his burden on him. Surely I have seen yesterday the blood of Naboth, the blood of his sons, saith the Lord. I will requite them in his place, saith the Lord. Now therefore take and cast him into the plat of ground, according to the word of the Lord. And so Jehu says, take his body and throw him in the vineyard that his dad had stolen. Okay? Now look at verse number 30. When Jehu was come to Jezreel, the vineyard, and he goes to Jezreel. When Jezebel heard of it, she painted her face, teared her hair, looked out at a window. So Jezebel hears what happens to her husband, or her son. She puts on her makeup. She does her hair up there. Jehu entered into the gate, and she said, had Zimri peace, who slew his master? He lifted up his face to the window. He said, who's on my side? Who? And there looked out to him 2 or 3 eunuchs. And he said, throw her down. So he threw her down, and some of her blood was sprinkled on the wall and on the horses, and he trode her under foot. So he said, throw her down. They grabbed her. They tossed her out the window. She fell to her death. The blood splattered on the wall, splattered on the horses, and then to add insult to injury, he jumped on her. Again, this is very, very graphic. A few years ago, Jacob, my son, had cello lessons in Halifax. And Halifax was an hour-and-a-half drive from where we lived. And so instead of going every week, we were able to go every 2 weeks and just double up the cello lessons. And so one week, Jacinda went with Karis and Jacob. And Nathaniel and I had basketball or something. And so as she's driving on the Trans-Canada, there's a semi-truck ahead of her, and she's here in the minivan, same van we got now. and she's getting ready to pass the semi-truck, and she sees in the median a deer. And she's thinking, don't do it, stupid deer, don't do it. And she could tell the deer is going to try and cross, so she puts the brakes on and slows down and allows the semi-truck to go ahead and pass. So now the truck's up here and she's back here. And at that moment, the deer decided to try to go and leaped across, got in front of the van, and got right between the truck and the trailer. Are you ready? And the wheels ripped the deer in half. Jacinta is screaming, Karis is screaming, and Jacob is saying, I wish I had, because the side was covered in deer blood. This is the picture of what happened with Jezebel. She's thrown down and just splatters everywhere. It's again, this is an R-rated movie, what's happening right now. Okay? Now we'll go with me to chapter 10. Chapter 10. Ahab had 70 sons in Samaria, and Jehu wrote letters and sent to Samaria unto the rulers of Jezreel, to the elders, to them that brought up Ahab's children, saying, Now as soon as this letter comes to you, sees your master's sons are with you, there are with you chariots and horses, a fenced city also in armor. Look out among the best and meanest of your master's sons, and set him on his father's throne, fight for your master's house. But they were afraid, and said, Behold, 2 kings stood up before him. How then shall we stand? He that was over the house, and he that was over the city, the elders also, and the bringers up of the children said to Jehu, We're thy servants, so we'll do what you ever want us to do. And so he said, okay. He wrote a letter the second time, said, All right, if you're mine, if you're going to listen to me, take the heads of the men your master's sons, come to me to Jezreel by tomorrow. The king's sons, being 70 persons, were with the great men of the city, which brought them up. And it came to pass when the letter came to them, that they took the king's sons, and slew 70 persons, put their heads in baskets, and sent them to Jezreel. There came a messenger, told him, saying, They were brought the heads of the king's sons. He said, Lay them in 2 heaps at the entering of the gate until morning. And it came to pass in the morning that he went out and stood and said to all the people, Ye be righteous, and I conspired against my master, slew him, but slew all these. And then verse 11, he slew everyone that remained. There's none left. And so now he sees that he kills Aram or Joram. He kills Jezebel, and now he kills the rest of the sons of Ahab, cuts all their heads off, and piles the heads in front of the gates with 2 giant piles. So there's a lot of killing in this passage. Ahab and Jezebel, they went after the prophets. They stole the vineyard from Naboth. For the consequences, they're to be wiped out, and Jehu is the one to do it. And so Elijah prophesied this. Elisha commanded the new king of Israel, Jehu, to execute it. And all this happened in that valley of Jezreel we talked about. So, remember in Hosea, the first name Jezreel is that God is avenging the blood of Jehu because of Jehu's massacre in Jezreel. So let's think about this. Jehu was told to kill Ahab, to kill Jezebel, to kill the sons, because actions have consequences and there needs to be justice to be done, and to wipe everyone out. And he did all that. He kind of went over the top, right? There's a lot of heads rolling, but he did all that. So then why, in Hosea, is he being judged for that? He's doing what he was told to do. Why would he be judged for that? Okay. Go back to chapter 9. And in verse 27, remember in the vineyard, we have 2 kings. We have the king of Israel. We also have the king of Judah, Amaziah. He's up there to visit. And when they have the face-off, Joram says, Treachery, Amaziah, run for your life. And they turn their chariots and they take off. And as Joram's taking off, he gets shot in the back with a bow and arrow. And Amaziah, the king of Judah, he's in the wrong place, wrong time. He takes off too. Look at verse 27. Amaziah, the king of Judah, saw this. He fled by the way of the garden house. And Jehu followed after him and said, Smite him also in the chariot. And then, in 2 Kings chapter 10, verse 14, he takes Amaziah's brothers, And we see that he took them alive and then murdered them in the pit of the shearing, 42 men, neither left any of them. So he's told to wipe out Ahab's line, but Amaziah, where is he the king of? Let's think this through. Judah, okay. What is the lineage of Judah? That's right, the Davidic line. This is the line of Jesus. This is the promised line of David in the Davidic covenant, 2 Samuel chapter 7. This is the line that God anointed. And you do not touch God's anointed. And so he obeyed in the Ahab's line, but he went too far in also killing David's line of Amaziah. And the judgment is going to come and his line being wiped out. Again, back in Hosea, when we see this guy named Jezreel, the first son, look at it again, call him Jezreel, for I will avenge the blood of Jezreel upon the house of Jehu, will cause to cease the kingdom of the house of Israel. And when the young prophet went to Jehu and said, God has anointed you to be king of Israel, you'll get 4 generations. Jehu's final judgment came in 752 when Shallum assassinated Zechariah. And Zechariah was the 4th generation of Jehu to sit on the throne, and they're finished forever. And the reason, again, is given because this goes with the downfall of the northern tribes. Evil leads to calamity. In Jezreel, where all the bad stuff happened, and all the murder, and all the mayhem, and all the stealing, and all the destruction took place, God is going to not only bring forth the judgment upon the house of Jehu, but God will break the bow of Israel in the same place. The bow of Israel refers to the military might of the nation. And here, Israel, the northern tribes, centered in Jezreel, is going to be crushed by Assyria's armies in 25 years because of what Ahab did and Manasseh did and the wicked kings of Israel. So all that, and there was a lot there, is that the first son, Jezreel, is going to be prophesying the destruction of the tribes because of what Jehu did, because of idolatry and sin. It's going to happen there in the valley of Jezreel when the final king takes his armies out to meet Assyria, and they're crushed in that valley that we saw the picture of by Assyria's armies. And they are then destroyed and completely taken away in 722 BC. That's the first child. Here's the second child, verse 6. This was a girl named Lo-Ruhamah. She conceived again. She bare a daughter. And God said to her, call her name Lo-Ruhamah, for I will no more have mercy on the house of Israel, but I will utterly take them away. But I will have mercy on the house of Judah, will save them. By the Lord their God, will not save them by bow, or by sword, or by battle, by horses, or by horsemen. So if the first son's name is prophesying the future destruction in Jezreel, the second one means no mercy. The root of the word Raham is the same word used for like compassion toward Israel. No longer will he have mercy toward them. He will have mercy toward Judah for the time being. And in fact, God's mercy love toward Judah is going to be in the form of a supernatural deliverance from the Assyrians. And 701, when the Assyrians are camped around Jerusalem, and God delivers them supernaturally, not by horse, not by bow, not by chariot, but by having them turn on each other and take off. That story is in 2 Kings 19. And so, by the second child, it's a picture of God toward Israel. God says, I'm not going to have mercy on you anymore. You will be destroyed by Assyria, and all false trust in God's mercy is exposed, and what it is, empty. God's long-suffering ran out. And now there's a third child, Lo-Ami, verse 8. And then when she had weaned Lo-Ruhamah, she conceived and bare another son. Then said God, call his name Lo-Ami, for you are not my people. I will not be your God. So the third child, his name means not my people. And this symbolizes God's rejection of the northern tribes. God, when he made the covenant with Israel, says 3 times in Leviticus 26, and Exodus 6 and Deuteronomy 26 that you will be my often have a picture of God as a giant fly swatter, ready to smush when they do wrong. But the primary way that God gives judgment is to simply give you what you want. It's Romans chapter 1. He gave them over to their lusts and gave them a reprobate heart. And we see this all the time, where people want God to leave them alone, and God says, okay. And he gives them over to their own desires, and they are crushed by the consequences of their own actions. And God says, okay, you don't want it? Off we go. And we have this here, that God says, you don't want it? I will no longer be your God. And off we go. So we have 3 kids that are born of Gomer, and these 3 children, probably the last 2 are not Hosea's. Their names are going to show the relationship with God with Israel because of their sin. God's rejecting them, not having mercy on them, and judgment will happen in the northern valley of Jezreel, where they're going to be completely destroyed. But in verse 10, so chapter 1 is going to be a microcosm of the entire book. In verse 10, we have something very interesting happen. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. Shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, you are not my people, there shall be said unto them, you are the sons of the living God. And so after the declarations of judgment through Hosea, God declares that one day the effects of judgment will be reversed. And the same place where it's declared, you are not my people, and I'm not your God, in the restoration, it will be declared, you are the sons of the living God. And then look at verse 11. Then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together. Now this is very important. When Assyria in 722 destroyed the northern tribes and took them all away, they were assimilated into Assyria and lost to history. The southern tribes, which is Judah and Benjamin and Levi, the priests, they were taken to Babylon 150 years later, but they were able to come back, and they retained their identity and their culture and their faith. And when you see Jews today, they come from those 3 tribes, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. The other 9 tribes are lost to history. In fact, if you know anything about Mormonism, what does Joseph Smith claim? Do you know? That Mormons are the 10 lost tribes of Israel. They're part of those lost ones. In fact, you have a lot of weird groups out there that say we're the 10 lost tribes of Israel, including the, what are they called? If it's an African American group, the Black Hebrews, what is it? No. Anyway, I'll think of it later. There's a group in America, it's made of African Americans, and Kyrie Irving is one of them, if you know anything about basketball. And they also claim to be part of the lost tribes of Israel. So anyway, they're gone. But what's fascinating is we look at our verse, in the restoration, God knows who they are, and God will restore Israel, Judah and Israel together, and the tribes that at one time been split apart by the Civil War will now come back down together, united, and look at this, they're gathered together and appoint themselves one head. The Davidic ruler, the son of David, Jesus the Christ, will be on the everlasting throne as a fulfillment to the Davidic covenant in 2 Samuel chapter 7. And then notice this is very cool. And he shall come up out of the land. The land, it will come up out of the land. It's a picture of a plant growing up out of the land. The day of Jezreel. So Jezreel, the northern valley, judgment happens, but in the restoration, because God keeps his promises to Israel, the judgment will be reversed, and in the same place of Jezreel, Israel will come out of the land. What does the name Jezreel mean? Remember? God scatters or God sows. So in the judgment, he's scattered, But in the restoration, he sows and plants, and he will grow up out of the land, and God's going to plant them back in the land. We have a partial fulfillment of that right now in the land of Israel. And the great day of Jezreel will reverse the former day of Jezreel of shame and destruction. Woo! That was a lot, wasn't it? Okay. We threw a lot at you. Keep your notes. If you get a chance, look over them. You can read those passages again. What questions do you have? Any questions? Yes, sir. It indicates that, yes. Okay. There's a lot in chapter 1, isn't there, with the names. And we see why the judgment on Jehu in the valley of Jezreel. Any other questions that you have? Yes, ma'am.
I just wondered, you said at the beginning there's theories of what people think about Hosea.
Mm-hmm.
What's yours? Like, what do you think?
I think that it is the third one, that Gomer became a prostitute after they were married.
But you think it actually, like it wasn't just,
Symbolic?
yeah.
That's right. When you read the story, it reads like it really happened. So I do not think it's an analogy. Well, it's an analogy, but I think it actually happened. It's a picture of a greater thing.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Okay, is your head spinning yet? There's a lot there. But at the end, again, it's very cool to see Jezreel and the restoration. And God doesn't abandon Israel, and he keeps his promises, and he's going to have the reversal of the judgment. And God's going to plant them in the land where he scattered them before because of the remnant. All that is there in Hosea chapter 1. All right. Shall we take some prayer requests?